the psychiatry profession does not define things by, they study biology, neurotransmitters, and so forth, but this diagnostic and statistical manual uses clusters of symptoms to define things. Biology is not part of the definition. And I should point out that neither is prognosis. There is nothing in the definition that says it's hopeless and you have to live with it forever in exactly the same form you're going at it. Just not in there. People who think that it is intrinsically hopeless and that people who do better didn't really have autism are going beyond what the definition says and making that judgment. So, but still there are no biological markers. You can't take a test, you can't take a blood test, a urine test, a brain test, a scan to say, oh, that shows that it's autism or that shows it's not. But we know we have thousands of papers showing that there are biological problems at every conceivable level going on. So what is this about? We know it's biological, and we know that people are different from each other in a lot of respects biologically. There must be something somewhere that's similar to make them produce similar behaviors, but what that is, people are guessing at it, but it hasn't been defined. So this is what happened with the definition of autism. People took those bubbles, which are the behaviors in the official definition, and assumed that each of those behaviors had a brain region that was causing the behavior, and each of those brain regions was messed up because of a gene. And we've spent the last 15, 20 years looking for those genes in those brain regions, and we haven't found them. So maybe the way we're framing this thing is directing us in the wrong direction. I think it is directing us in the wrong direction, and I'm going to explain what I think a more productive direction would be as I go through this talk. So if you go back to the slide, static gene module. A module means that each of the gene-brain behavior thing is a module. One little like Lego piece, and you just piece them together and you get the autism. And I'm saying that's not it's not a Lego thing. First of all, it's not just genes. There's more than genes going on, and I'll get to that. But this is my whole talk in one slide. So more than genes, and why the rates are going up, and also the gene thing isn't working out so well. They're not finding genes that explain everything. They're finding lots and lots of genes, but each one explains a very small amount in a very small number of people. Some of the genes explain a lot in a small number of people, but I doubt whether any of them explain all of it in anybody. So, so the rates are going up, and there's a lot being learned about the environment. There's also more than brain, because the whole body is involved. And there's also more than the brain as having a funny wiring diagram that it acquired prenatally, because the brain tissue has active medical problems, and I'm going to tell you about this. And this is all what you kind of need, what you seriously need to know if you want to understand how messing with a diet and eating wonderful banana bread can actually plausibly impact the brain. In other words, there are serious reasons to take the model seriously. That's what I'm going to be focusing on. This is a slide from the state of California, a picture, a graph. And this is a recent one. It came out sometime in the late winter, early spring. And it goes from 1987 to 2007. That's 20 years. And the blue line that's climbing really high is the number of diagnoses of autism in the schools, in the diagnostic centers around the state of California. The three lines on the bottom that are not going up are mental retardation, epilepsy, and cerebral palsy. So why is autism going up and these other entities or categories are not going up? 1,200% is a lot going up. The graph that they published a number of years ago went from 1994 to 2001, and it showed a 267% increase. And then from 1990 to 2004, there was a 600% increase. So people have said, what do I have here? You can't see my little thing in the corner. People have said that, well, it looks like it's going up, but it isn't really going up because the autism is going up, but the mental retardation is going down, or whatever. We used to call these people psychotic, and now we're calling them autism. Or we made it easier to get diagnosed with autism, and we're more aware, or we're starting younger. And so Irma Hertz-Picciotto, who's an epidemiologist at UC Davis, Mine Institute, and Laura Del Ricci, who's also there, went through all the cases from 1990 to 2004, which is a lot. And during that period of 600% increase, they found, yes, about 1/3 of those can be explained by younger age of diagnosis, looser diagnostic criteria, and changing, and including milder cases. And we all know people, or many of us, if you've been in this for very long, know people who, especially older people, who now you would really call them on the spectrum, but 10, 15, 20 years ago you wouldn't. And there's probably a fair number of these people walking around, and they certainly account for some of the increase. But it's a really big deal to go from saying that accounts from some of the increase to saying it accounts for all the increase. And it's a really big deal to get it right. Because if you get it wrong and you write off all of the increases and then you're wrong, we're losing precious time in looking for what we can do to help people who already are affected and to prevent people from developing suffering and all the complications associated with autism. And I want to say something. There's a whole movement within the autism community called neurodiversity. How many of you have heard of the neurodiversity movement? So these people say some very important things about the talents and skills of people with autism, and autism being a different cultural way of life. And I think that there are sometimes, when I'm doing research and looking into things, I wish that I had the capacity for detail of some people with autism who could do remarkable research and remarkable work with information or art or technology. But many of the people who advocate this position, but not all, are highly articulate, functioning people who can stand up and write pages. And it's hard for people who have children with autism who can't talk and who can't sleep to feel that all of that is okay. It may be, and my own feeling is that if you get over a lot of the suffering part, you may not come out with a person who's exactly the same as a typical person, but you may come out with somebody who can have much more access to their talents and who can really have much more independence and more options. So I'm not arguing, and some of my friends say the problem, one of the big problems with the way people have been treating therapies for autism is that they're trying to make people with autism normal, but what we should really be doing is helping people with autism to be extraordinary. So I think that that's really important. But in order to do that, you have to get over the pain and the misery and the suffering that is not necessary, and I would like it if we could have a more peaceful and cooperative discussion, recognizing that you don't lump it all together. There are parts of it that are extraordinary, and there are parts of it that are just really a drag. And so I'm focusing a lot on the parts that are really a drag in what I'm talking about, and I think this specific carbohydrate diet is addressing that as well.